Welcome to this React crash course. In this course, we are going to learn React by building a small real project. We won't spend much time on theory. We'll understand React by writing code. So, what is React? React it is a tool used to build user interfaces. It helps us break the UI into small pieces called components. So, when data changes, React automatically updates the screen. And remember, React it is a library, not a framework. I'm Harshit. I'll be your mentor throughout this course. So let's start building. And to follow along, you must need three things. Node.js installed in your local machine, a laptop with internet access, and basic JavaScript knowledge. So if you don't have Node installed, just head to nodejs.org and get it installed. And to check if you already have, just give node-v followed by npm-v, npm-v, and here you go. So once you have Node installed, you can just start creating your React app. The command goes like npm create white at latest followed by the app's name. It can be anything. So as we're building an Instagram's clone, I'll just name insta-clone. I'll select React we'll go with TypeScript. No, yes. And once the installation gets completed, it starts a development server. And as of now, we don't want it. So I'll just redirect to my full Insta clone and then just give code dot. Alright, so now our React project is successfully set up. At first glance, this might look a little scary. Lots of folders, lots of files, but don't worry, and this is important. You are not going to touch most of these files. You also don't need to know what every file does right now. React projects always come with some extra files for setup, and that's completely normal. Okay? As beginners, we are going to focus only on what actually matters for building our app. So now, here we'll have a closer look. Now, this source folder is where we'll spend almost all our time. If you open it, you will see an assets folder followed by few other files like the main.tsx, the index.css, app.css, and app.tsx. Again, don't panic, we'll take this step by step. This file, main.tsx, is the starting point of our entire React app. Think of main.tsx like the body of a human. It is responsible for saying, hey React, start the app, and put it on the screen. You'll notice that main.tsx doesn't really contain our UI logic. And now, moving to the next file, app.tsx. Now this file, app.tsx, this is where our app actually lives. If main.tsx is the body, then app.tsx is the soul. This is where we write the components, the UI logic, everything the user actually sees. Right now, don't worry if this code doesn't make complete sense. All you need to remember is this simple rule. Main.tsx starts the app while app.tsx defines the app. And now you don't need to memorize the structure, you don't need to understand everything immediately. React is something you understand by building, not by staring at the files. So let's stop overthinking and start writing some code. Okay? Alright, now let's actually run this app. I'll open the terminal right here inside VS Code. If this is your first time, don't worry about the commands, just follow along. npm run dev. Click enter. Now this command starts a development server. Basically, React is now watching our code. Any change we make, the browser will update automatically. So to open your website, just click and this opens your React app. Here you can see the app's name. Now, any change we make, now watch this, and it's one of the coolest part. Like say, for example, here instead of white plus React, I will change it to star clone. and control yes. Now, yeah, as you saw, I didn't even refresh the page and React automatically updated it. This is called hot reload and it makes development really fast. And now that we have seen how React reacts to changes, let's do something that might feel scary at first. So we are going to delete everything inside app.tsx and start fresh. And trust me, this is completely safe. So now let us write some neat code. I'll create a function. Function is a keyword. Now it throws an error and it's no problem. Just wait. So it returns header. Yeah. Say insert clone. Yeah. And we will export it. Don't worry if you don't understand it. Export default app. Just have it in mind. Whatever function you create, you gotta export it. Okay. And one more thing, every React component is just a function. This function returns a JSX, which looks like a HTML. So whatever this function returns, this is what shows up on screen. So think of this like React calls this function and React paints whatever it returns. Change the return value and the UI changes. Say add an extra key, just save, go to the side, and here you can see. Alright, now let's understand what we just wrote. This entire file is defining one React component. In this one, function app. This line means we are creating a normal JavaScript function called app. In React, components are just functions. There's nothing special or scary here. It's just a function. Now, the return part. Now, this return part is very important. Whatever this function returns is what React shows on the screen. So, in our case, we're just returning a h1 tag. This looks like HTML, but technically it is called JSX. JSX is nothing but JavaScript plus XML. And don't worry if you don't get it, just try to know what JSX actually stands for. Okay, JSX lets us write UI directly inside the JavaScript. So React takes this JSX and converts it into HTML in the browser. Now, the parenthesis part. These brackets are just for readability. Okay. So when UI becomes bigger, wrapping JSX inside parentheses keeps things clean. And now this part, export default. So what it actually does is, it says, hey React, this app component is the main thing you want to use from this file. And that is why we use this export. So think of it like this. React calls the app function, the function returns a JSX, and React puts that JSX on the screen. So one rule to remember in React, UI is equal to function output. If you understand this, you understand the foundation of React. And right now, everything is inside the app component, but real apps are never built in one big file. Instagram is made of small reusable pieces for like the posts, stories, buttons. We have separate such files. In React, we represent each of these pieces as components. So now we'll create our own component. So we'll go to the source folder, click new file, and we'll give a new component a name. So for example, post.tsx. And have it in mind, the first letter of the file name must be in capital. And the file name and the component name should match. The component name in the sense, the function's name, I mean, function post. And it is the right practice also. Now we'll return something. Return within parentheses. We will have some block of code. Say I'll create a div, and within this we'll return a h1 tag, say post component. Yeah, and don't forget to export the function. Export default post. Yeah, and also one thing to have in your mind, in React, each return can have only one block inside it. So you can't have multiple divs returning. Oops. Control C. Well, we shift all down. It throws error. So within one block, you can have multiple other blocks nested, but you can't have multiple blocks returning. Okay, hope you got it. And now to use this component inside your app.tsx, we gotta import it. So just write import the component's name followed by the file from which you are importing it slash post, and then it throws you an error because we haven't used the post component anywhere. So what you'll do, just use it. So to use the post component, angular bracket, the component name post followed by closing tag. Yeah, and as I've already said, you can't have multiple blocks within a return function, so we'll enclose it within a div tag. And now if we go to our app, yeah, and now say for example I need totally 3 posts. So what I do, I write post again and again post. So whenever I write post, React actually calls the post function, and whatever value the post function returns, that gets shown on the screen. And if I save the file, Control X, and yeah, now you could see. Notice how we didn't copy paste the HTML. We reuse the same component multiple times. And this is how React keeps large apps manageable. And right now, every post looks the same. In the next step, we'll make post dynamic, and each post will have a different username and content. And right now, all our posts look exactly the same. But on Instagram, every post has a different username, caption, image. So instead of creating a new component for every post, we pass data into a component. In React, this data is called props. Props are just inputs to a component, just like a function takes parameter, a component takes props. And now we'll see. So for example, we give props and we'll use this prop somewhere here. To use a prop, we'll be enclosing it with curly braces. So whenever you write any of your JavaScript inside your JSX, you gotta enclose it with curly braces. So props dot username, and we'll have a paragraph and say it has props dot caption. Yeah. Now, so we have to pass a username and a caption to the props. Props is basically an object. So to pass and data to it, we'll give here username equals, and yeah, it's pretty good. I'll just click tab, user to, yeah. So you just give the username here. So whatever property name which I have used, say for example username caption, just use it. Okay. And now we have an error. Parameter props implicitly has any type. So yeah. So first of all, you gotta declare what all the type of parameters you want to receive. So type, give any name, post as it's already given, post props equals an object, and within which here we have two parameters. One is the username and the other is caption. Both these properties are of type string. So let me just declare username colon string, then again caption is also string. And here to use it, as it already highlights, with near prompt, you just have to give a colon followed by the object's name. Now when I click save, go to the site, yeah. So now we have used the same component multiple times, but with dynamic data. Alright, so now let us see how to add an image to our post. So as of now, our post has a username and a caption. But Instagram, it is basically an image-based app. So now let us see how to add an image. So first we got to define its type. And for image, it is also going to be a path or a URL, which is none other than a string. So it is also of type string. And let us have it in between image. Just click enter in the source. Just delete the double quotes and within curly braces give props dot image. Alright. And in alt you can give alt is nothing but when your browser gets crashed or if your image is not shown properly, it will be showing this alternate text. So for example, it is an alternate text. Great. So now we have to pass the image URL to the property. So here we have to add image colon. You can give any of the random URL you want. Okay. So it can be anything. Within double quotes, I'll give something which I got from Google. So, yeah. And image equals again. So it is totally a random picture URL. Okay. Say of 2 and let it be 3. Image equals within double quotes. Now I'll say, and if I head to the site, yeah, here we have 3 images. Now we're getting quite closer. We have username, an image, and the caption. So yeah, now let us do some styling to this image. Let us stick on to inline styling as well. And it is similar to what you do in regular HTML. Just within the style tab, ensure that you are having a nested curly braces and within which we declare with colon and within double quotes you gotta give the value. Say for example, as of now I'll just show you it works 10 pixels. I'll hit save. You can see the image size has reduced so much. I'll just revert the change and I'll just set a border radius. That's enough. Border radius, say for 10 pixels. It gives your image a round corner. Yeah. And yeah, this is how you send an image as a property to your component. And right now, our post looks real, but they're completely static. But on Instagram, users can interact with the post. They can like it, they can share it, they can save it, and whatnot. And to handle things that change over time, React uses something called a state. So basically, state is a data that can change, and when it changes, React updates the UI automatically. And yeah, so to show you the working of the state, I just created a button, and basically For a state to work, you need something to trigger it. Okay, and that's why I created a button. So we can have an on-click function like that. So yeah, and in React, to make use of a state, you have to import something called as useState. And commonly, we just write the import statements at the very top of the file. Import within curly braces use state from React. And now to make use of the use state, we have a specific structure to be followed. And it goes like, just declare the type. And now we're going to write the state of the like button. So like, set like. I'll just explain what it is in a second. So 0. Basically, this is the structure of a state. First, we have the variable which holds the current value, and then we have a function. Here, set like, it is not a variable, it is a function. It is the function that we make use to update the value of the variable. And use state, the thing that we imported. And 0, it is the current value of the variable. So the variable holds the current value. Set like, it is used to update the value of the current variable. Okay. And one important thing, you can't just directly update a state variable in React. I mean, within your code, you can't just directly give like is equal to 9 or like is equal to 10. You can't just give directly. You must make use of the set like function to update the value of the like variable. And so, yeah, this is quite correct, but I'll just type it out. Again, click on click. We'll just give an on click function to it. And within on click, I'll have a curly braces as I'm gonna write some JavaScript. So I'll make use of an arrow function. So we'll call the set like function right here, set like. And now I'll just console log something, console.log. Or otherwise I can either have it as just like plus one, because here we just declare the variable like. We'll update its value like plus one. And now we have to somewhere or the other show the value of the like. So we have within curly braces. So when I click, yeah, like gets updated. Now as you could see, the state of this variable is alone being updated, and the other components, they remain as they are. Click. Yeah. So basically this is how a state works in React. And one thing, notice what just happened. We didn't touch the DOM. We didn't refresh the page. We just updated the state and React updated the UI for us. So in React, you don't change the UI directly. You change the state and React takes care of the UI. And now, every post has its own likes, but in real Instagram feed, we don't hardcode posts one by one. In the next step, we'll build a real feed using arrays and lists. Now we are manually creating the post again and again. But real apps don't work like that. In real applications, data usually comes as a list. So the next step is to store our posts in an array and render them dynamically. So one post object equals one post component, and an array of objects equals to a feed. Now I'll show you how to create an array of objects. Let's give it a name, say for example post, and it is an array and it holds objects. An object is defined within curly braces in React. And now we're going to fill in with the fields that we have here. So whatever we are sending as a property to the component, we got to declare it here. So username. So for the first post, we are having the username as user1. And next, we're having a caption, colon, This is by, I'll just copy paste it. Next, the image URL, image column. Yeah. So this is one object. This object corresponds to this post component. So for the other two components also, we gotta create such objects. Now I've created the objects for the other two components as well. So yeah, now we have all the data related to the components. And to make use of this array, first let me just delete the hard-coded values. And now what we are gonna do is that we are gonna iterate through the array, and for each item in the sense, each single object is an item of the array. So for each array, we're going to use the map function, and it sends these data to the component, and it renders it back and displays on the UI. So let's write it. So yeah, within curly braces, since we are using JavaScript inside the JSX, the object name posts dot map, it takes a variable called post. So here post is nothing but more like a counter variable that you have in your for loop. Yeah, like I or j, etc. And followed by within parenthesis. Now it is exactly same to how you have declared the component already. So okay, post, close it, and now we can send the attributes to the property. So username within curly braces, use the post, this variable dot username. So this basically comes from this object. So post is like a counter variable which iterates through the item, and for now consider it is like holding this object. So post dot username corresponds to this value, and when the item moves to the next one, like when the counter variable has this item, post dot username corresponds to user2. So yeah, so we have sent the username, and next the caption equals within curly braces post dot caption, again the image URL, image equals post dot image. And when I click save and Windows, it looks exactly the same. So don't consider the image because it just gets a random image from a net. When you look at this, there is no specific change which you could see on the UI part. But the way we built it is completely different. And once you understand this, you can build real apps because this is the way how real applications work, real notifications work. And yeah, now our feed is dynamic, but in real apps, data is not written inside the file. Like, yeah, is not written so. It usually comes from a server. So in the next step, we'll simulate an API call using a React. Right now, our feed is working perfectly, but there is one problem. Our data is already available the moment the app loads. But in real apps, data usually comes from a server, and that takes time. So React gives us a way to run code when the component loads. That concept is called a side effect. And in React, we handle side effects using a hook called useEffect. Now let me show you how to use useEffect. And one important thing, to make use of useEffect, you need a state. So we'll alter this post to a state and later use it in the useEffect. So you can import useEffect and use state from React. Import use state, comma, use effect from React. Now I'll just cut it and I will declare a state inside that const post set post. Hope you remember this structure and use state. So now inside the parenthesis, let us now give an empty array arrow because here when we have a closer look, like it holds the count of the like, but post it was having an array of objects. So now we just give it an empty array. And now we'll create a use effect and an arrow function. Now I'll paste the data that we had here and I will give it an auto name fetched post and now I'll set the data of the post using set post holds fetched post. Now we have an error. Argument of type username string caption is not assignable to parameter. Alright, so the error is caused by this statement. In TypeScript, we can't declare an empty array. So an empty array, it is equal to a never kind of array. A never array in the sense, in the future or anymore, you can't store anything to this array. So we should not declare an empty array. Rather, we should declare a type for it, like how we did in the post component, something similar to this, and we can make use of it here. And that will actually work. So type post type equals an object. So what are all the things we're using? Username, caption, and image. Username of type string and caption. It is also of type string and then image of type string. Now within angular brackets, give post type. And now it must work. This is just a warning and we can ignore it as of now. Now when I have a look at the site, yes, now it works. Alright, so let's pause here for a second. This is exactly what useEffect is meant for. Whenever you want to run some code when a component loads or when something outside the React needs to be synchronized, that's when you use useEffect. In our case, we used it to simulate an API call and load the Instagram feed. And once the data arrives, we update the state and React takes care of the UI. So remember it like this. Use state holds the data while use effect reacts when things should happen. So basically, state answers what and effect answers when. And now at this point, our Instagram app behaves like a real application. The feeds load dynamically, the UI updates automatically, and we didn't touch the DOM even once. Now that the logic is in place, the next step is just to make the app look good because functionality without good UI is only half the experience. In the next section, we'll focus on styling the feed and understand how React re-renders components behind the screen. Alright, let's be honest. Though our app works functionally perfect, but visually, yeah, it looks like a developer app. So now let's focus on styling. And the good news is that React does not invent a new styling language. We use normal CSS. Yeah, if you know CSS, you already know how to style React apps. Now, inside app.tsx, let me just give class names to the elements so that I can uniquely identify them and style them. So for the div, I'll give a class name of, say, app, and for h1 I'll give a class name, say title. And note that you can't give a class name just as a class, you have to mention class name. And now all the styling goes inside index.css. I'll just delete whatever likes here and let's start fresh. So for the body, I'll set a margin of 0. This basically overrides the default values and gives us more control. And let's have a background color of something quite dark. This is close to black, yeah. And next, let me go with the font. Let it be Arial. Okay. And of course, we can have the color as white. You can either give it as triple F or just write white if it is a solid color. And next, we'll refer to our app using the class name. So to do so, give dot. Dot is called a period and followed by the class name. Within curly braces, we'll set a maximum width, say 500 pixels, and then we'll have a margin of say auto just to center line the contents. And next, padding. And note that I'm not going to be explaining in detail the CSS part, and if you want, let me know. I'll post a separate course for this. So padding, let's have something like 20 pixels. Padding basically gives spacing inside the element. And now let's style the title. And if we had a closer look, the title, that Insta clone, it was left aligned, but we want it to be in center. So let's give text align center and margin bottom. Let's have margin bottom to be say 30 pixels. So margin bottom, this gives us some space between the title and the post contents. So if we head to site, yeah. Now if we see, we have something that looks quite close to a feed. Now let's update the post as well. Similar way, we'll give the class names. For the container, I'll give a class name, say post. And for the username, let's have a class name, say username. And let me just change it to a heading 3 so that it's not so bold. Headings we have from 1 to 6. And as we move down, the size and the boldness reduces. So let me give h3. And for image, let's have a class name. You can either give it in single quotes or double quotes, that doesn't matter. Say post image. And then a class name for the caption as well. Class name equals caption. Let's have everything uniform. I'll give it a single quotes. Cool. And now for the button, same way, let's have a class name or say like button. It is a common practice to write btn for buttons. And now we'll go for styling. Same way, we are going to index.css and we'll be referring these class names and styling it. Now the post part. Let us have a separate background color for this and let it be quite dark as well. One. And then a border radius say for 10 pixels. And then let's have a padding 15 pixels. This might give some space within the element, and let's have some space between each post. So let's assign it to 35 pixels. And next, let's now style the username. And before that, let's have a look at what the UI looks like. This is quite good to be honest. Okay, so let's start styling the username. So period followed by the class name within curly braces. Let's just give some space in the bottom. Say 10 pixels will do good. And let's style the post image. Say we'll assign a width of 100 percentage and give it a border radius of 10 pixels, and we'll have some spacing at the bottom here as well. Say margin bottom 10 pixels. Let's see. Yeah, now we have the image center align and we have space below it as well. Okay, good. And now we'll style the caption. Don't forget the period. Caption will just have a margin bottom. And next, now we go. Okay, but the like button doesn't look good, so we'll style that. Like button. We'll set a background color for this as well. White doesn't look good. And from Google, I saw this color and it looked really cool. It goes like 262626. Yeah, something quite close to gray. And we don't need a color. We'll just set a border of none so that if I hit save, the black border just goes off. And we'll have some padding of 8 pixels and 14 pixels. So it is just the top padding and the left and right padding. We go, see, look here from the top and bottom you have 8 pixels of space, and from the right and left you have 14 pixels. You can either give like just in one padding, or otherwise you can go like padding left, padding top, padding right, and padding bottom. But you gotta write 4 such statements. Instead of that, if you have fixed values for top and bottom and right and left, you can use this method as well. And let's set a border radius, say 20 pixels, and then hit save. Yeah, it's good, but let's just change the cursor pointer as well. Cursor pointer. So when we hover over the button, it changes to the hand symbol. This looks good. And to give it more like a button effect, let's have a hover effect. So we'll refer to the same class, colon, hover. So this happens when we have our mouse pointer over the button. So let's just change the background color to something like, if I go back, yeah, it looks good. Now this actually feels like an Instagram style feed, the same logic, the same React code, only the styling changed. So React controls the structure and the behavior, and CSS controls the appearance, and they are completely independent. Now, there are many ways to style a React app, like CSS files, inline styles, and libraries, but the fundamentals are always the same. Now, here's something interesting. Every time we click the like button, React re-rendered part of the UI. But how does React decide what to re-render? That's what we'll understand next. So now our app looks good and works well, but There is something important happening behind the screen. So every time we click the like button, something called a re-render happens. Let's understand what that actually means. So re-render does not mean React refresh the whole page. The page does not reload. React only updates the part of the UI that changes. And yeah, so when we click the like button, we update the state. When a state changes, React runs the component function again and React compares the old UI with the new UI and updates only what's different. So in one line, when a state change happens, the component gets rerun and the UI gets updated. It is not gonna reload the entire page. And when you notice something, when we like a post, say here, only that post updates. The other post does not reset. That's because each post component has its own state. And re-renders are quite normal. They're not slow. They're how React works. You should not be scared of re-renders. So in one simple analogy, think of React like a smart editor. Instead of rewriting the whole document, it just fixes the sentence that changed. And once you understand re-renders, you stop fighting with React and you start working with it. And at this point, you already know enough React to build real apps. The last thing we'll cover are common beginner mistakes and what to learn next. Alright, so before we wrap up, let's talk about some common React mistakes beginners make. If you have already made these mistakes, then congratulations, you're learning React correctly. So, the first thing, as I've already said, modifying a state directly. Say, for example, say we're having a if statement and if like is greater than 5, and if you're trying to alter it like set the like equals to 10. I know it doesn't make any sense, but you can't do so because in React, state is read only. You can never change state directly. You always use the setter function, like the set like. You must use that function to alter the state. So I'll just revert these things. And the next common mistake is not giving a key value. So when we render list, React needs a key. So without it, React gets confused during the updates. So for example, here in the list of objects, we didn't mention a key. So a key can normally be an ID, say 1, and for the next one, say ID colon 2, and for the next one, ID colon 3. So always use a unique key and ideally an ID. And the next thing is if you ever see your app freezing or React complaining about too many renders, just go check your use effect. So missing dependency array causes infinite loops. So if we have a closer look, we don't have a dependency array here. So we commonly specify a dependency array after the curly braces. Like here it gets started and and after the curly braces ends, you give a comma. And for now, we'll just give an empty array. So an empty array refers to it just gets loaded only once. And yeah, within the array, if you want any dependency, you can specify it explicitly. Stop. And now, please stop overthinking because React is just functions. React is just a state and it's just UI reacting to data. So if you have a closer look, we just have functions here and there. App, it is a function. Post is a function as well. And React, as I already said, is just state. So whatever changes, you hold it in a state. And it's just UI reacting to the data. So if something feels confusing, build a small version, break it, and fix it. And that's how React looks. At this point, you have already built a real app. You understand how React thinks. Now let's close this crash course properly. Alright, so take a second and look what you have built. You didn't just learn React, you built a working Instagram style app. Let's quickly recap what you now understand and you learn how React works from ground up. So we started with components, then moved on to JSX, and then about properties, and then we handled the states, and we used effects, and we learned how to use the list of objects, and we learned few stylings and how re-render works. These are not beginner concepts anymore. They are core React fundamentals. So if React ever feels confusing, come back to this rule. UI is just a function of data. Change the data and the UI reacts. From here, your next steps are very clear. So next you should learn is like a React router, API calls, context or prop drilling alternatives, better component structure. But don't rush. Build small apps, break them, and then fix them. So you are going to hit bugs, things will break, and that's not a failure. That's really how you learn. And because bug happens. If this crash course helped you, like the video, share it with someone learning React, and subscribe if you want more build first content. My name is Harshit. Thanks for building with me. I'll see you in the next one.